Hello, fellow Pops. I'm Dr. F Scott Feil, and I'm bringing you a message from our sponsor at Ice Shaker. My diet's always been a little bit messed up most of my life, and I recently started trying to take back control of my health. And one of the issues my doctor pointed out was that I needed to make an increase in my protein intake. Now, I can't eat chicken breasts all day, every day, so protein shakes and powders have become a big help. Ice Shaker and its built in removable agitator is an amazing product. They come in a bunch of sizes and colors, and you can even get inscriptions and logos on them. They're stainless steel, double wall insulated, and hold ice for 30 plus hours. If you're interested in purchasing one, you can click on the link in our show notes. Or if you're interested in selling them for your business and making commission, and let's be honest, if you're listening to the Professors of Profit vlogcast and you can consider yourself a pop or a professor of profit, you're likely interested in selling these as a side hustle. You can click on that link in the show notes as well. Or you can reach out to me directly on social media. I'm pretty available there. I love Ice Shaker, and I'm betting you, your patients, and your clients will too. Ice Shaker, let's shake things up. Now let's start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Professors of Profit vlogcast. I'm your host, Dr. F. Scott Feil, and I've got with us today an entrepreneur mogul, Ryan Lee, who is somebody who I've looked up to for a little while now, and I'm really excited to hear more about his new journey that he's on. He started out with Rewind, which was kind of a greens company, and that's kind of been put to rest for now and sold off, and now he's ready for his new venture, which I'm excited to hear about. So Ryan, please tell us a little bit about your journey into entrepreneurship and how it's led you to where you are today.
Yeah, well, I started my first online business back in the late 90s. So I've been on for a long time. And I know everyone listening to this, they're in the health field, the physical therapist. So my first 6 years out of college, I worked in a children's hospital and I was a recreational therapist. So I know the world of PT back and forth and OT and speech. And we were interdisciplinary. So I worked a lot with PTs. And I started a side training company. This was late 90s, training young athletes because I was an athlete through college. I ran track and then I got my master's in exercise physiology. So I know this space. And I said, okay, let me create a little website just to promote my personal training company, my sports training company. And that was really the start of it. I started then selling online training. I started selling like medicine balls, stability balls, bands, things like that. And I worked with a drop shipping company. Then I started getting emails from people, hey, could you design a training program for me? For my son is a 15-year-old soccer player. I'm sure. And I would create these programs all online. And this again was, like 25 years ago. Then I ended up taking all this content I was creating and created a membership site. So basically I put it behind a paywall. And that was really the beginning of this journey where I started generating a lot of revenue and more revenue than I was making. And at the time I left that job and I became a health and phys ed teacher. And it just took off. And I started getting asked after a couple of years, I started getting asked from other, mostly sports training pros, but a lot of PTs as well. We had a lot of PTs and a lot of chiropractors that were training athletes. And they said, hey, can I learn how to sell a sports training equipment program online or work with athletes or work with General Pop? I said, sure. And I started teaching them. And then all of a sudden I become known as the fitness marketing guy, which was never my intention. I thought I'd just go kind of direct to consumer. Did that for a long time, started a few nutrition companies. The past 5 years, I've been running my own nutrition company called Rewind, which as you just mentioned, I just sold about 4 weeks ago as of this recording. So I'm back to kind of, for the first time in like 10 years, like building my brand again, talking about marketing, talking to PTs, talking to everyone who wants to take their knowledge and their skills that they have in the real world, and let's find ways to create passive revenue the right way, not where you feel embarrassed and shady and sleazy and who else wants to touch their toes, like all this cheesy crap. To become a PT is not easy. Like you got to have your degree, you got to go, you have to become licensed. Like there's a lot of steps you have to take, and you don't want to downplay that and water it down and feel embarrassed about what it is you're doing. You should want to create products and programs and services online that you're proud of, that if you put it in front of your family and friends, they'd be like, oh, I love what you're doing. Let me get behind you and support you. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm kind of back to teaching. I've sold my other companies. I'm now, I'm 50. I have 4 kids, so they're all teenagers. One's already in college. So I'm just kind of enjoying the back nine, teaching and having fun and getting on podcasts like this one, Professor
Yeah.
Profit.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's funny because like you said, it's hard to become a PT, and people don't realize it's 4 years of undergrad now and 3 years to a doctoral degree, and then your
Hmm.
license, right? And
Yeah.
then you come out with all this knowledge, and you're expected to just go and work 9 to 5 and clock in and clock out and make 65K a year. Like, no,
Right.
we're made to do more than that. Like, I feel like we have the credentials. We've got to put that imposter syndrome stuff aside and just realize and own the fact that we
Hmm.
know more than 90% of the general population,
A lot more than
Yeah,
90%.
yeah. So,
It's a lot more than 90%. Yeah. And I think sometimes health professionals, especially PTs, tend to downplay, what we know, and not what I'm not I'm an exercise physiologist. I'm not a physical therapist. Big difference. So we do PTs do downplay what it is they know and their skill set. I think that the biggest challenge is getting over, like, trying to figure out where you can carve out your space online. Because there a lot of PTs, not every PT, a lot of PTs are more general in nature. Maybe they work in a clinic and they see people, from car accidents and spinal cord injuries, or my dad just had a back surgery. Like, you see all these different things and you're like, well, how do I translate this online? Because I can't do any, muscle stuff, no myofascial release, no stretch. I can't do anything physical, which, physical therapy, right? So you lose that. So how do you translate that as best as possible, helping people online? And one thing to just start to position yourself differently and think differently is figure out who it is you really want to serve and target online. And that the difficult juggling thing is juggling the online, the real world stuff. Like, okay, I work in a clinic and I see general population, and that's how people kind of quote unquote know me. But if I want to go online and I want to specialize in, let's say, training just people with shoulder injuries, or I just want to specialize in training athletes or a specific athlete, like I just want to specialize, I want to be the basketball PT online. How do I do both? How do I do real world versus kind of online? And that's that really is the trickiest part of beginning, and I think that's what holds a lot of PTs back, is because we don't know which step to take and we don't want to be put in a box. So sometimes you might have to have two different things, or you're like, okay, let me just do this online thing and kind of compartmentalize and go all in with the basketball thing and create your brand and your website all around that. And sometimes we start to think in a limiting belief that, well, if I go too niche, if I go too micro, and I'm just working with basketball players, there's not enough. Yeah, there are enough. Well, if you say to me, Ryan, I want to build $1 billion company, no, there's not enough basketball players with like, shoulder injuries. But if you want to say, for now, I want to make an extra couple grand a month. I want to make an extra 2, 3 thousand a month. And for some people, that's life-changing money, right? I know everyone's online. Oh, 100,000 a month, 1 million a month, but a couple extra grand a month, a couple hours a day, or an hour a day doing some online programs. It's not it's simple, not always easy, but it is pretty simple to do. So I know I'm kind of rambling because there's so much good stuff to dig in. I love
yeah.
markets like this, like Pete, working with
Right.
PTs.
And you really can survive and thrive even in a niche market, right? There were two brothers that I know that are quarterback docs, right? That's their podcast. That's what they do. They only rehab quarterbacks. They strengthen and condition and train quarterbacks.
Yeah,
That's all. That's their population. Grade school to college quarterbacks. That's it. And now people are coming to them from all over the country to be in their camps, to learn from them, to rehab from them,
absolutely.
because that's their specialty, that's their niche, and they're doing quite well. So it can be done for sure. And one of the things that I kind of like to dive into and ask everybody really in the entrepreneur world, why should people start their own business? Why should they go into the entrepreneur world? Because it's not for everybody. I'll give them that much, right? It's not for
Yeah.
everybody. But why? What's your why behind starting a business? Why do you think people should get into that? Whether it's
Yeah.
professors or PTs or clinicians, whatever.
And you it was almost a little throwaway sentence, but it's the most important thing is it really isn't for everyone. That's the most important. Like, that's the first step, is thinking, is this something I really want to do? right? Do you want to do this? And not everyone does. Some people just want the safety and security. They want to have a job. They want to punch in and punch out. And when they're out and they leave at 5 o'clock, they go home, have, dinner with the family, watch some Netflix. That's cool. I don't judge. You have to figure out if you really want this because it's not easy. So, the why, it, some people say, well, it's the extra money and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like, what does the money get you? To me personally, it's the freedom, right? It's the freedom. Like I'm doing this right now from home in my basement wearing sweatpants. And I have a really successful company doing that. And I've coached all my kids for like almost 2 decades. Um, I I carpool at night. I don't miss a thing. I just had lunch with my wife upstairs. I'm going to have dinner later. I'm actually making dinner for my family tonight. I'm going to be done by 3 o'clock today. That to me is it. And everyone says, "Oh, what's your definition of success?" and all these different definitions. Mine is it just comes down to 3 words, and it's the ability to anything run through this filter. Any question anyone asks you to want to do or whatever, you just say, "Nah, I'm good." That's freedom, man. Just, hey, Ryan, do you want to speak at this event? Nah, I'm good. Do you want to work with my client? Nah, I'm good because you don't have to. So that really is the thing, right? You could always make money, but you can't make more time. So if you want more freedom, now the freedom is going to come with a cost at the beginning because there's going to be some, it's going to be a learning curve. You're going to have to put some time in. This isn't I never promise anyone a get rich quick, you press a button and the money starts flying in because it's not like that. But you mentioned the quarterback docs. Brilliant. Like brilliant. That's the kind of stuff where I've been coached. Like I've pushed my all of my clients. So some of my clients become if you know an online health and fitness person who's a celebrity, they were likely either one of my students originally or one of my students' students. So this guy, Jeff Cavalier, Athlete Next, he was one of my first students, and he now has the #1 fitness YouTube thing. It's like 13, 14 million followers, 8-figure business. And he's, by the way, he's a PT. He was a PT, and he ended up working with the Mets, and he kind of specialized in this kind of body sculpting, uh, becoming an athlete through being training like an athlete and looking like an athlete. But if you could find your space, and you might say, well, everything is taken. No, it's not, because you just mentioned quarterback docs. Is there a linebacker doc? Is there a defensive back doc? Is there a kicker doc? Is there a punter doc? And that's just football, right? What about forget baseball, right? The pitcher, the catcher doc. So if you are a competitive quarterback, or your child is a competitive quarterback and they have an injury, who are you going to? Are you going to a general PT, or are you going to the quarterback? You're going to the quarterback doc, even if their rates are 50% higher, even if they aren't necessarily better, and I'm not saying they're not, but everyone wants a specialist, right? If you're going through a divorce, are you going to go to the attorney who's like, oh, I do real estate, I do wills, I do this, or the attorney says, I'm a divorce attorney, that's all I do, right? If you need heart surgery,
Yeah.
right? Are you going to a cardiologist, or are you going to the local walk-in doc? The answer is pretty clear. So specialize and go all in and say, this is my space, this is what I do. But then you have to commit to it. Everything you do online, with marketing, with messaging, with email, it doesn't matter if it's Instagram or YouTube or Facebook, and you don't have to be everywhere. Pick a platform, pick one, go in and just put that flag in the ground and say, this is me, this is what I do, and this is who I serve. And consistency, show up every day, show them that you're there for the long run, and you'd be shocked at how quickly this thing can grow. But you got to find that market who you want to serve and find your little corner. Then it's easy to create products. If you have a list of hungry customers, you can create anything. You really can.
Yeah, and I think the more you show up, the more you become consistent. It becomes a lot easier to just ask them, what is it that you need? Poll your audience and figure out, how can I best serve you? How can I help you? What is it that you need me to create? And they just give you the answer and you create it.
Yeah. It's as simple as asking an open-ended question like, what's your biggest problem right now? Right. So if you're working with punters, right? Hi, all my, fellow punters or dad punters, whatever. What's the #1 challenge you have right now? What's the #1 problem? What's the #1 thing you want improved? And they will tell you. And if you get 100 answers, you're going to see like 75 of them are going to be the same, whatever that is, tightness in the leg or consistency or what. Then just solve the problem. Solve the problem however they want it to be solved. Like what's easiest for them. And PTs tend to do this a lot because the PTs are smart and they've had so much schooling and they want to show off how intelligent they are. And they use a lot of jargon, you know. I remember all this stuff. Like I remember the sits muscles, the subscapularis, the infraspinatus. The general public has no idea what that means. So if you say, "Oh, you're a baseball player, you got to work your sits muscles, and you got your subscapularis," they don't know. It just confuses them. It makes you look kind of like a jerk. So cut that out. And what they don't want, what the general population don't want, is a master's degree in physical therapy. They don't want 19 hours of webinars talking about the anatomy of the capsules. They don't care. Give them the damn exercise, right? Here's my 4-week program. Here are the 5 best stretches to. Just give them that. They don't want all that other stuff. You think they do, and you're like, well, they really need to know it. Yeah, there's a difference between what they need and what they want, and they don't want that. Maybe you can give it to them a little bit on the back end after you sell it, but that's not your lead. You don't lead with, I'm going to teach you everything you know about the musculature of your knee. That's where physical therapists and doctors and anyone trained in the healthcare profession, that's where we get into trouble. We over complicate, over jargonize stuff. I don't know if that's a word, but I just
yeah, that I was an English major, at Wake Forest, so I definitely think over jargonize is a word now that needs to be for sure. So I think the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid. We need to like learn all those words and stuff to get through school and graduate school, but we really only need it to communicate to some of the top, doctors and other healthcare clinicians so they know what we're talking about. But then we need to dumb it back down again and bring it back to layman's terms when it comes to describing these things. And we literally need to keep it simple. I tell my students that all the time. Like, you're going to leave here with 50,000 new words in your vocabulary. That's great. You paid a lot of money for that. Now you need to unlearn it and be able to have a normal conversation with somebody who has no idea what any of those are.
Right.
And then you need to make sure that they understood what you just told them in the language you told them.
Yeah. Like, for example, don't say, do you have shoulder impingement? And I see that all the time. Like, I'll see a Facebook ad. Do you have shoulder impingement? They don't know what that is, right? Or instead just say, do you have shoulder pain? Yes, here's 3 exercises. There you go. And this is also related to another this is a biggie, and I learned this early on. Because here I was, out of college, early 20s, writing these articles about speed training and all this stuff. And I started getting emails from colleagues, oh, well, really, it should be an eccentric exercise. And at first I would like get defensive. I say, no, and I'd start arguing. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm not selling to them. And you are not unless you are selling to your physical therapist. But if you're talking about a shoulder exercise for baseball pitchers, you're not selling to your physical therapist. Unless, again, you're packaging how to solve your patient's shoulder thing. Here's a scientific impingement, blah, blah, blah. But if you're talking general population, you're not selling to your colleagues. So don't try to sell to them. And don't worry about appeasing them. And I know sometimes we get nervous. We're like, oh, what are my colleagues going to say? Who cares?
Yep.
Are your colleagues paying your rent and mortgage?
Exactly.
No, they're not. And I don't like to say this because it sucks, but it's the reality is that when colleagues start sniping at you, it means you're probably doing a good job.
Yeah.
I can't stand that's true, but it is because it means you're saying something. It means you're saying something different. You're ruffling a few feathers, and you should be. If it's so generic and it's like if your advice is, oh, well, you got to follow the RICE method, rest, ice, compression, elevate, no one's going to buy your stuff. They're like, well, I could learn that on whatever, on Wikipedia. So they're not coming to you for that. They're coming to you for something a little bit different, unique, and specialized. So sell to them. Don't worry about what your colleagues say.
Yeah. And I'm actually in an interesting position because I do sell to my colleagues, right? But it's, I put my ego aside a long time ago, right? Having to go from English to physical therapy was not an easy transition. I knew it was not going to be. So I just threw my ego out the window and said, all right, teach me. I'm here to learn. Whoever I could learn from, that was fine by me. So I know I'm never the smartest guy in the room, right? And I'm okay with that. But as smart as you are at your studies in shoulder impingement for years and years and years and all your publications, I'm probably that smart when it comes to business and marketing for your specialization.
Hmm.
How many books have you written on how to sell what you're solving? How many podcasts do you host that talk about your shoulder issues and what you've been talking about for the last? You don't know how to do any of that. So I've
Hmm.
taken a different route, and I've been able to say, hey, look, I can help you be the expert and authority that you've become and monetize it, right?
Yeah.
So all we have to do here is take the same formula and plug your expertise and authority into it, run it through the machine, and you can run it however you see fit, right?
Yeah, and I'm sure get you take a lot of arrows in the back, just as I did when I started teaching marketing to fitness pros. Man, the stuff people would say about me, how can you do this? It's not, this industry isn't about making money, it's just about helping people. And I said, yes, you can help people, but if we're starving and we're out of the industry in 5 years, who does it really help? So let's make money, let's do it ethically and legally and serve people. You can do both.
Yep.
You can have a good ethical, strong, legal, foundational business and still make money.
Yeah.
You can
And
you can
we have to get away from the one-to-one patient care method and go to one-to-many in order to make money and help more and have more impact, right? Yeah, I can treat
Yeah.
one patient an hour for 8 hours a day and help 8 people. Or I can write a book about how I do all these things, and that can then be sold to hundreds of people.
Right.
And now I'm helping one to many and making more money on the top. And that's passive too. That the book sells while I'm asleep, so I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not a huge fan of passive income. I don't think that term is exactly what it says it is, because you
I
do
call it semi-passive.
exactly. There's a lot of
Yeah.
front end work that goes
Right.
into it, marketing and stuff. But for the most part, I don't have to be there to sell you the book and read it with you and show you all the things. It's just out there in the world.
Right. Right.
So, well, Ryan, tell us a little bit about, like, all right, they've got this idea, they've got a niche they love, they've got a population they love, they think they want to get going and start a business. What are some tips or tricks or pointers you can give for somebody just starting out that wants to get rolling?
Um, so God, there's so many things to start thinking. I would say if the first step you want to do is just start building momentum, meaning don't wait for your program to be done. And I see that all the time. They're like, well, okay, I want to create this program, but it's going to take me 6 months. So they don't say anything. So at minimum, even if you don't have your own professional Facebook page yet, it's just your personal thing. Like at least create a Facebook page, right? At least create an Instagram account. At minimum, just those two things, and maybe a YouTube account. But you don't have to be like a lunatic doing it. And if at the very first steps can be going to your friends, your family on your social thing. Hey guys, I'm excited. This is what I'm doing. As you know, I'm a PT. I've been a PT in this clinic for 10 years and I love it. However, I'm going to start teaching, I'm going to start building a business online showing running backs how to stay healthy. So I can't wait to share it with you. Here are two logos I'm thinking of. What do you guys think? Just that alone, you'd say, well, they're not my audience, but it doesn't matter because they're there to support you. You're going to get some feedback. You don't have to you could take everything kind of with a grain of salt. But then you say, is there anyone who might be interested in this? Oh my God, do you know my cousin Joey is he's the coach and all he does is coach running backs. Let me connect you guys. You'd be shocked how often that happens. It's so funny because yesterday I said, you know what, after almost 10 years, I'm going to start doing my daily podcast again. I just stopped doing it when I started my nutrition companies. And I said, here are two logos. What do you think? And I've got like almost 300 comments ready. Just my personal page. And it's already building momentum. I've been reached in the past 24 hours. 3 people have reached out to me to interview me on a podcast because they saw that. They're like, oh, it's cool. You have a show. Do you want to be on mine? So you'd be shocked at what that could do. So you can actually, it's more about documentation, like documenting what you're doing now. So just start that and then start putting things out there. I would say the technical thing, the most important thing to do is wherever you're posting stuff, being consistent, obviously, and having some way to capture their email address because it's cool. Look, it's cool to say I have 500 followers or 1,000 or 10,000 followers in social, but the reality is you don't reach everyone. You might reach 1 or 2% of them on any given post, but if you get their email, you're going to reach them. Whether they open or not is a whole different topic, another for another day. But at least even if you just have on your website hey, check out more tips or check out my favorite exercise, check out my favorite stretch. Here's how to set up a home gym. Make it a softball, right? Lob it, and then just build that list. Get everyone from social onto your list and communicate with your list often. Like
Yeah.
those are the first things. That's the very first steps I would do before really creating a product.
Yeah, that's huge because you could even start documenting as a student. You don't even have to be a
Of
licensed
course.
clinician.
Yeah.
Find your niche, find what interests you, and say, hey, I really love working with cheerleaders. That's all I want to work with. That's my dream. I want to be the cheerleader doc, right? Well, then you can start your journey. I don't know everything. I'm not even graduated yet, but here's my journey. Follow me as I learn these things and tips and tricks I learn in school so that when I become licensed, I'm ready to go and work with you and give you the best product I can, you know?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm thinking of an example. So when I first started, there was this young guy. He was a college student. He was like 19. His name was Eric Cressy, and he was going to school for like kinesiology and strength and conditioning. And he was buying my products. He was going to my events. He was posting articles and writing, and he was still in college. Fast forward today, he's got the Cressy Performance Center. He just trained the last two Cy Young Award winners. Like every professional athlete goes to Florida to work with him
Yep.
because he started early and he just was like all in with this. You
Yeah.
don't have to have your PhD in PT. Get started now, get started today. And I love that idea, Scott, where it's like, even if you're in school, say, do a quick video, take your iPhone. Hey, I just got out of class. I learned this really cool exercise that you can do if you're a cheerleader, that's going to stretch this thing. So here we go, and try it. If you like this, give a little share, give a little like. Let me know what you think. Do you want more of these? Get the ball rolling. It's if I look back, I try not to look back with regrets, but man, I was so far ahead of the curve. And if I would have just stayed consistent with one thing over these past, 20 years, I'd have 400 million, YouTube subscribers. I'd have like a 9-figure business.
Yeah. But that's a good point too. You talk about the social media and stuff, and that's great. But if any one of those platforms goes down or bans you for some stupid reason, or you get hacked or something, that email list is super important because it's the one thing you own outright. You're the one audience you really own and command.
It's your asset. Like when I sold my nutrition company just recently, that was one of my most valuable assets. The fact I had like tens and tens of thousands of people and customers on my list.
Yep.
Like I got a lot of money for that. So,
Yeah.
and then every time you send email, once your numbers start getting up there, you should be making, depending on your products and pricing, this number's been thrown around for a very long time. It's like a minimum of $1 per subscriber per month. Mine usually are higher. It's usually $5 to $10 per subscriber per month. So if you have 3,000 people, you're like, oh, it's only 3,000 people. It could be anywhere from 3 to 15,000 a month.
Yep.
When you do this the right way.
Yeah.
And that's not like BS. That's actually real numbers.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Ryan, I appreciate your time, man, and coming on here to educate the audience about, why entrepreneurship and business can be so helpful and important, especially, for people with high student loans and trying to, make more money and add extra revenue streams. What's coming down the pipeline for you now, man? What are you working on next? Where can people reach out and find you?
Yeah. I'm just playing, man. I'm just having fun. So to catch up on everything I'm doing, just go to my site, ryanlee.com, and I practice what I preach. Sign up for my newsletter. I call it my daily ish. I send an email almost like every other day, sometimes every day, and everything is tactical. Here's a tip. Here's a strategy. Here's what to do today. Just follow me there for what's going on. I'm building some new programs. I might do some events again. The great thing is now, like, I could just do whatever I want. So, and I go a little bit against the grain of some other people teach, so some people enjoy it. And I'm working on my new show as well. As of now, it's tentatively titled Ryan Lee TV. So we're gonna have some fun with it. But yeah, just Ryan Lee, RYANLE.com. Get on my newsletter and let's connect.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll drop all that links in the show notes so it's easy for people to find you. Again, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on, man, sharing your time and your expertise. Like I said, I've been a big fan for a long time, so I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Scott.